Are you thinking about starting a business this year? Well, if so, you hit the right video. Let's talk about it. Tonight, I have one of my best friends who is one of the most kind hearted men I know, as well as one of the most creative people that I've ever met. Please welcome Mr. Sean Damdar.
Hey guys, thanks, Steve. That's very kind of you.
Oh, you paid me well to say it. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, you're also one of the people I joke the most with in life. All right. So, any highs and lows of the week that we should be aware of, or that you'd like to share?
This week, no highs or lows yet. Actually, it's been pretty even so far. It just started, but over the week, it's been pretty good. Actually, it's been a good start to the year. Being able to really ease into things. No, there's ongoing things that we're looking to accomplish this year, but I mean, as for this week, it's been actually a good start. So, in a sense, these sort of no highs or lows is actually a great thing because it's just being even, which is kind of nice to start off with.
Maybe that's actually a bit of a high then.
Yeah, it is. It is in a sense. Yes. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. All right. So, just for people to get to know you a little bit, what's your favorite TV show, movie, or piece of art of all time? If you have one off, say the top of your head, or if you've been pondering it.
Mm, I would say if you're talking movie, I would say I think The Wizard of Oz.
Oh,
Wizard
interesting.
of Oz, definitely. It was made in the 1930s, but it's timeless. Like you can put people in front of it right now who've never seen it, and they'll be completely mesmerized by it.
Hmm.
So I think it's one of those. It's a movie, or even you could say art that kind of shows you that something timeless can be created at any time. It doesn't matter that it doesn't have the greatest effects or anything. It's just more than the sum of its parts. And that's what makes it something that anyone could watch at any time and just be completely absorbed in that world they created.
Absolutely. Well, is it the music? Is it the pacing of the story, the timelessness of? Is it like just a combination of everything? That obviously you were using just fantastic film stock at that time. Is there anything in
Mm.
particular that really shines, or is it the sum of all the parts?
I think it's the sum of all the parts. Like I think the music, I think the sets, like if you look at it individually, everything looks fantastic. Back then black and white was sort of the standard. So when they walked into the color world, it's definitely a wow moment. But it still
Mhm.
feels that way because when you're watching it, you go from black and white to that. It doesn't matter that you've seen color before. In the
Mhm.
context of the movie, it works. But the music is good. The messages are fantastic. They're timeless. But it's more than the sum of its parts. I find like if you're looking a lot of things that impact people at a high level, it's hard to always put your finger, like you can sort of break them down and analyze them,
Mhm.
but at some point they always there's an experience to it that ends up being more than you can really analyze, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that should be the next state of our topics. Will be just talking about media, just watching different things and reviewing it. It just can captivate so much time, especially from a Christian perspective. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for answering that question. And people got to get to know you. Hopefully, we'll do dozens, if not hundreds, of these in the future. And I'm really, really appreciative that you've taken the time. But before we go any further, I just always want to at least say a quick time of prayer. And at the moment, to get this day started, but at the moment also, we have two big, issues in the world right now. Iran is a hot spot, as so is Venezuela
Mhm.
with all the transitions. And of course, there's other places, the Palestine and Israel situation, Eastern Europe, places in Africa, places in South America, in different gang lord transfers and stuff. There's a lot of hardships and heartaches, but these are two very pivotal places that have not maybe nuclear implications, but could go nuclear depending on the players involved. So just pray
Mhm.
for tonight, get the night started, and then looking forward to jumping into business, creativity, and life in general.
Okay.
All right, so let's pray. Lord Jesus, I just want to thank you so much for this time. Thank you for Sean, and pray that your words will reach out to whoever is listening through him. And I just want to thank you that we live in a place where we don't have to worry about bombs blowing up all around us, and we can enjoy certain freedoms and peace right now. I just pray for Venezuela and Iran as they go through a lot of civil unrest with changing of leaders and parties and situations, and it's deadly right now. I just pray for your wisdom. You allow for the evils of the world to at times and the leaders to be in place, but they are for good things to happen in the future and for the right people to stand in the gaps. Pray that this night will be edifying to you in Jesus' holy name. Amen. All right, Sean. Is there anything that you wanted to say just as an introduction outside of maybe some of the questions that'll be firing at you tonight, or?
Uh, no, nothing I can think of. I mean, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to meeting some new people as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So, but nothing, nothing. I hadn't thought of an intro or anything, but yeah, we could jump into it. That's probably a good intro.
Yeah,
Once
100%.
we start with the questions.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so you and I have talked plenty over the years, and you and I have helped a lot of people in tough situations, creative situations, and done mentorship in a lot of ways as well. So, getting to know your background in this interview is very interesting for me too, to kind of learn the intricacies, because you kind of miss things in translations in friendship. When you actually have to sit down and bear down with some of the questions. So,
Hmm.
first ones that comes to mind is, you started off in a different field educationally, and I think from what I understand, you kind of stumbled into this creative world, which allows you to create your own creative company. How did that transition happen? Because obviously, if you're moving and you're in school for one specific thing, you're studying, you're doing something with that particular direction, and then things shift gears. What was that transition like?
Hmm. So I started in computer science. And this was the late 90s. So back then, there was sort of this idea that you had to do science if you're going to be successful. Now, I never really enjoyed it, especially I went to U of T, and computer science is, there's not much creativity to it. There isn't a sense when it comes to coding and how you design your code, but it's just a very technical field. And I never enjoyed it. I just tried
Mhm.
to force myself through it. Now, I was also trying to get involved in different clubs and organizations because I didn't know anyone in university. You want to get to know people. I'd always loved doing creative stuff. I loved it in high school. I never thought of it as a career path because I guess I didn't think I was good enough. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I never put a lot of work into it. And I knew other people who were just fantastic. And at the time, you kind of looked at it as you either have to be at the very top or you just can't do it. There wasn't the
Mhm.
thought that you can get better or that there's different kinds of art, right? Like if you look at the creative world, there are illustrators, there are designers. I know some illustrators who are absolutely phenomenal, but
Mhm.
they're not great graphic designers. It's a
Mhm.
different, sometimes they're great at everything. And then there's that one thing they're not. So when I got into university, I started doing it just because I enjoyed it. And as I started doing it, it kind of combined with the fact that I didn't like computer science at all. And I wasn't doing that great at it. And it's not for lack of trying, I was trying. And I think also too, like I had attention issues at the time that I just didn't really realize. I just
Mhm.
kind of thought I wasn't trying hard enough. But what happened is as I started getting more into designing things and really sort of teaching myself how to do this stuff and learning about it,
Mhm.
I I started kind of taking on clients. I started sort of offering this to do for other people. And it just started from there when I was in university. And then I just kept growing, building it. And eventually I switched out of computer science because I realized there's a larger world out there where, like for example, I ended up doing a history degree. A lot of people would say a history degree, especially back then, they were saying, why would you do that? Like, what use is it? But you learn a lot of skills in history, and when it comes to things like branding, history is really important. The cultural relevance, the way we understand things. So it ended up being a great fit, and I actually enjoyed finishing in history because a lot of the courses I actually enjoyed taking. So it ended up working out well, um, and that's basically how I got into it, straight from there, and I've been doing it ever since in different ways, but that's basically where I started.
Mhm. Was there like a pivotal moment, or like was there a brochure that you did or something where you're like, man, I can do this thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first ones I did, I think starting that young is both good and bad. It's good because you're
Mhm.
kind of naive and you don't know what you're doing. So when
Mhm.
people are maybe not giving you the greatest feedback, you're
Yeah.
still sort of like, okay, and you take it and you're just like, oh, I think it's okay though. But I think I got feedback, and sometimes people weren't a big fan, and a lot of times people were. I think that's what drove me is that I generally got good feedback, but I also was not I was open to hearing feedback even if it didn't feel good, and I would learn
Mhm.
from it. And it was a process too because I didn't go to school for it. It directly. I didn't go directly for design or graphic design. I was sort of self-taught and really just worked at it. Um, but I think as I started doing more flyers and people really liked the result, and people, I think as I got better feedback, I realized, oh, I can do this, and I really enjoy it, and I just really dove into it. And I can't think of a real pivotal moment, but I would
Mhm.
say that period throughout school is where I felt I could. And I also felt like, I mean, and it's weird to say, there was sort of a fear driving it too, because I didn't know what I was going to do. And I felt like I had to figure it out for myself because I felt like who's going to hire me for, well, not for computer science. Like, what are people going to hire me for? And I felt like
Mhm.
if I didn't do it myself or find my own way, I would be kind of stuck, which is not a
Mhm.
great place to be coming from. But I mean, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So I think as I got feedback and then there was that drive to like, you really need to get better and move ahead. I think it's hard to pinpoint an exact moment, but I think it's really as clients, I was delivering, I was helping them. It's ultimately about solving a problem and
Mhm.
providing something that really captures, I guess, the event they're doing or whatever. And I think we were doing that and getting good feedback. And that's where I realized like I can definitely do this, after a bunch of them.
Mhm. All right, so you brought up a good point. So maybe it wasn't a pivotal moment or year, but were there different stages or time frames in which you felt like you were maturing, or did your company just kind of all take off all at one time?
Um, so I had a few different companies before the one I have now.
Mhm.
Um, I started doing a lot of it out of, they say ignorance is bliss. So I
Mhm.
guess it was it was in a good place in that sense. Because
Yeah.
I started doing it and there was a bit of a, I don't know if it's an arrogance or I was just like, I can do this. Like there's other companies out there charging X amount of money. I can do it a great result for less.
Mhm.
And doing it that way actually helped because I learned a lot of hard lessons. And that I would say is that those university years up until like maybe the early 2000s, where I was really learning the hard way. And I continued to do that throughout, I guess, the early to mid 2000s. And it took me a while to break out of that mindset of cheap equals good. I started to understand why companies charge a lot of money um, because it's hard work, it has a lot of value. And I think a lot of that mindset comes from growing up where in a place where money is not everywhere. There's a bit of a scarcity around it. And it's important to be wise with your money, but it's also important to understand that there's value in work too and balancing that out. So that
Mhm.
I eventually learned that. My first company, the first name was Empire, and then I switched to Cinerus, which was just a word I made up and people seem to like. And then as I was doing it, my dad was in real estate, and I found a niche there because I noticed the real estate world was still somewhat behind, I guess, in terms of design and everything. Like it's a lot of it still felt like it came out of the 80s. So that
Mhm.
was my concept where we really focused in on the real estate market. Um, and I think if you're talking about periods where you knew things would work, I think the first trade show we did in 2006, because
Mhm.
that was a big way we got business. Trade shows, I think, are great because you get to meet people in person. You get an audience that is there's a built-in interest in what you're doing. So the response we got was fantastic because people hadn't really seen a concept like that before. Sort of I guess you could call it a higher end concept for real estate with
Mhm.
where it wasn't just your typical flyers or the usual, few templates. So that's where I knew that there was something there, and that was a big pivotal moment then, and that's when it really started to take off. And then I would say there was a second kind of uh, bump around 2010 to 2012, around that point where it went to another level again. And that's where we kind of got to the point we are now. So yeah, it did happen in stages.
No, thanks for sharing that. I think it's so pivotal for anyone who's watching as well to remind myself that things just, when they finally hit, when they're finally working, and it's so cliche to say, but it's years and decades of trial and error. Some people would call it failure. Some people call it, multiple testing batches or whatever it might be, or not even mistakes per se, but learning your method, putting in the reps. And it's nice to hear that, as you know, you are definitely a professional in your realm now, that it wasn't just the I figured it out one day, I hired a bunch of people and off we went, right? It
Yeah.
took a long time, and it was that the blissful ignorance of not knowing how ridiculous it could be or how hard it would be. With that being said, off track here for a second, do you think if you weren't as ignorant as you were stepping into it, that you would have continued if you knew how tough it was at times, or the kind of uh, the long the length of time would have taken for you to achieve what you've achieved?
Um. So if I could go back and do it again, you mean?
Yeah, or if you knew how arduous it would have been during those years to get to where you are now, is it something you would have done? Would you have repeated the process?
I think I think so. I would do things differently. I would
Mm,
definitely maybe get experience or try working under someone for a while just to kind of see how things are done. I
mm,
would have gotten a mentor at the very least. I think that would have helped. So like what I would tell people, if you're looking at my path, I think there's something to be said for a long period of making mistakes and
mm,
learning from them because those are often the mistakes you learn from the most, the ones where
mm.
you learn the hard way. They always say it's better, the wisest people learn from other people's mistakes instead of their own. But I think it takes a lot of time for us to figure out we need to learn from other people's
Yeah.
mistakes because
Yep.
sometimes we think we can do better. There can be some pride there. Um, I would, because here's what I would say. I think no matter what you're doing, it's going to be hard. There's going to be an element of hard work and ups and downs no matter what. Like nothing worthwhile ever comes really easily. It can come
Mhm.
faster, and there can be situations where you have support, or maybe you're able to get a lot of that expertise a little earlier. You have a lot of mentors that you're around. Um, in my case, I didn't have that. I just kind of did it. And since I wasn't someone who went to art school or design school, sometimes I did feel a little like really early on, like I like doing it, but there's also a level of intimidation maybe where again I felt like I had just had to do it and get good. So it was a good thing, but it was also not a great thing because I probably could have done it faster if I'd gotten some help. So I think going back, if I go back, I don't think it would maybe be as bad because I would be wise enough to sort of say, I need to get help. I need to listen a little more. Um, I need to get out of my shell because that's another thing too, right? I'm naturally very introverted. And since I didn't have confidence, it could be challenging at first to get out there, go to networking events, meet people. And
Mm,
even now, like with social media, that's still really important. It's still really important to get out and meet people. And because ultimately, that's what most of business is, it's relationships. And
mhm,
social media is fantastic. But ultimately, the relationships that really drive things are the ones where you're face to face, where you're actually communicating directly, as opposed
mhm.
to being strictly online.
Mm. Yeah, thanks for those nuggets. I appreciate that. It's it's really good to, I think, have that introspection. And from what I've been hearing from a lot of the professionals I listen to, is that one thing is paying for knowledge, up and leveling the game, and kind of that speed hack is paying or finding a mentor or finding a teacher with a specific goal in mind. And it takes a long time. Like I can say for myself, I'm bordering on that, and it's expensive. It's four figures, five figures expensive for a short amount of time, especially in this YouTube realm. But at some point, I'd love to pull the trigger. And sometimes it comes down to finances in life, and it's good to learn those things. But I think learning that you need to learn from someone as a professional is profound. And like you said, it's pride a lot of the time. So it's like even the knowledge of it is one thing, but the follow through is completely different. So Appreciate you sharing that. So then, looking back, where do you see God's hand most clearly in your journey? Maybe early on, let's say.
You know, I think in the challenges actually.
Mhm.
I think that a lot of times as Christians we look at God as someone who's supposed to either spare us from challenges or make them easy,
Mhm.
when I don't think that's really the point. I think a lot of times challenges are important. Um, Kind of like in any place, right? A lot of times people who want you to grow will put a challenge in front of you because they want
Mhm.
you to rise to the occasion, get better. And I think for me, all of those struggles early on were really important. And that's where I had to kind of unpack a lot of things. I was being forced to grow in a way that um, wasn't comfortable. And a lot of times, like it's easy to be comfortable. I think, especially now, I think we're really as a society focused on comfort right now and feeling good.
Mhm. Mhm.
We have been for a long time, but now it's taken to another level because I think a lot of times, sometimes hearing something hard can be taken as as inappropriate or unkind or the wrong thing, when a lot of times the people who tell you the hardest things are the people who care the most because they're
Mhm.
telling you something that you need to hear. So I feel like if you're, as far as God is concerned in my walk, I think, and I would probably wouldn't have said so back then, but looking back, I think those were the key times where I did feel his presence even if I didn't realize it at the moment. And
Mhm.
then throughout all of that, I think I felt it most probably um maybe about 10 years in, so like the mid to late 2000s is when I think there was a lot of growth happening spiritually, personally, and so forth. And I think that's when things started really coming together. So I think in hindsight, it
Mhm.
was there back when it was difficult. I maybe couldn't quite realize it then. But if I'm talking about when I actually was really, things were coming together, it was probably around then.
Mm. Yeah, it's amazing how God steps up in those moments when we're childlike, teenager-like, moving into a different realm, and just always have forever faithful. So, with that being said, uh, let's pivot now towards maybe faith and the leadership side of things, because obviously, as you progressed in your company, you had moments where you had to make big decisions, walk away from things. Your faith is obviously the thing that drives you, as well as take those moments by the uh, you know by the horns, I guess you could say. So then, how has your faith shaped the way you lead others, whether it's a client or whether it's people that are working under you?
So with clients, I've actually been quite blessed in the sense that I can't think of anyone I've ever had to walk away from due to, a faith-based conflict or something that I felt was at odds. I guess it's especially with the field I'm in, it's real estate. So in some ways, there's sort of just the way things go. So I've been, in that sense, I haven't been challenged in that way. Now, I've certainly been challenged in walking away from it may be a situation that wasn't ideal for either person or where maybe there was a disconnect in terms of value. But in terms of or maybe, just they're not the right person to work with. And I think in that sense, sometimes I've been very blessed. God has definitely been watching over, and I've definitely, fortunately, made some good decisions in that regard. Sometimes I haven't, where you kind of feel like you need to take anything. But in terms of actual, like, oh, this doesn't align with my faith, that's actually never really happened. Um, and again, I think it's a product of the field I'm in, where it's fairly straightforward in a sense, with the ultimate goal everyone's trying to accomplish, just selling more homes. In terms of leadership, I think over the years, I think the thing I've really learned, and I think as you pray and grow and uh, learn more, I think servant leadership is really at the heart of everything.
Hmm.
Um, Anything you do, really, because even if you start a business, it is about serving other people and helping other people, and that's always been the approach. And what comes with that comes with patience. It comes with understanding. It comes with putting them first and understanding what they need. So, like, I have to do sales in my business, and I think sales has a certain reputation as being kind of a maybe a bit of a slimy profession where people are trying to trick you. But
Mhm.
sales, I found, is actually really it's just helping people, listening, understanding, and seeing how you can serve them. And if you can't, you can't. But if you
Mhm.
can, um, that's where you really form a great relationship and you're able to really connect with someone. Now, are there salespeople who just trick people and tell them lies to get them to sign on? Sure, but um, a lot of times that doesn't go so well. So I think there is a great way of doing it. And in terms of creative, I think it's true. Sorry, not creative, but in terms of leadership, now that when I added people to my team or when I work with people now, it really is just again that servant leadership, understanding, knowing what is best for them, what will help them grow. Because I think if you're doing a great job as a leader, you're helping to develop other leaders. So how can you set a good example? How can you be there? How can you communicate something that might not be easy to hear in the right way to help them understand and grow? Yeah, and that's up to also the people that are under you, because sometimes if someone comes in and just has an attitude, they don't want to listen to anyone. There's not much you can do about that. You can try your best, and you can just take it where God leads. But ultimately, it's up to someone whether they want to listen or not listen.
Mhm. Do you have a specific moment where you had to take someone, lead them somewhere, like not maybe by the hand, but guide them to the answer due to maybe either ignorance or frustration, or they just weren't able to do the job right? Is there a time where your biblical perspective on leadership really came into play? Is there something that, or a story that kind of pops out at you?
Again, I've been very blessed with a lot of the people I've worked with, because
Mhm.
I think that actually speaks to something as well, sort of semi tangent. It's also discernment and making wise decisions with who you work with and not, because a lot of times you can avoid a big problem when you just make you can just make what was I going to say, the if you make the right decision, sometimes it's clear someone isn't the right person to work with from the start. Just character, it's understanding that you won't be able to work together or help them. I do
Mhm.
recall a situation where someone wasn't getting it, um, and ultimately we had to just stop working together. There's a point at which we tried to help. I tried my best to uh, help them understand what we were looking for and help them get to a point where we could collaborate, but it just wasn't working, and we had to, we paid them for that particular job, and we just stopped working together. Um, it's difficult because you want everyone to do well and you want to help everyone, but there are times where you just can't. And the best thing you can do to help someone is to just let let them go.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm trying to think of other situations. I think in general, usually it's just providing the right feedback, and how you provide feedback is important. If you layer it with the right focus, highlight things that they've done well, and then get to the things that could improve or maybe didn't quite hit the mark. It's also challenging if you're working with people who are doing creative work, because a lot of times creative work can be very personal. Like, it's not the same as, as an accountant, it can be personal too. But if you miscalculated something, you might feel like, oh, I missed something, but it's not
Mhm.
quite as personal as someone designed something that they think fits the requirements you put out. Um, they can take it personally, because sometimes too, that's the other thing. If you hire the wrong person for the wrong job and they just don't get it, that's very much on you, right? Like, that's why you want to vet their portfolio. If you have a certain concept or idea, and you pick the wrong person because their style isn't bad, it just isn't a fit, then what can you do? You know?
Mhm.
So it's just about being discerning, and also discerning, patience, and uh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Just
Just
doing the
Mhm.
doing the just putting the other person first. Let's put it that it's as simple as that when you're working with someone. Making the right decision, discerning, using your discernment that God provides to make a good decision, or the best decision you can, and then um, doing your best to lift them up.
Mhm. Okay, so then, and thank you for that. So then, when you when you're making these decisions that are coming up in a creative role, as a creative director, as taking someone's business and then pushing it forward, how do you make that critical decision? Because you have to think about the culture, you have to think about age, you have to think about demographics, you have to think about who they're going to be advertising to. What are those key things that help you make those decisions? Are you, you know, do you stay like super grounded in the social media realm? Is it Do you use biblical principles? How does this things overlap?
Sorry, and was that for my business, or you mean if I'm helping someone
I
in
think
general?
a hybrid of your business as well as how you help other businesses at the same time, because obviously you're making those decisions, or at least guide
Mhm.
to the fountain, right, or guiding them to the well to help them to drink up. You know what I mean? To hopefully financially ground themselves.
Um, I think so. If you're looking at a business overall, you want to understand their culture. What are their values? What's important to them? Um, and that sort of speaks to who is important to your what kind of people do you want in your company, right? Like, what you need those people to have the values that the company has, or that shares those values that can push the company forward, because ultimately your culture is tied very much into your brand. So how do you you want to first understand that. That's the key thing. You want to understand that, and then find the right people. And ultimately, I think there are basic things about character that apply to everybody. Any business, you want someone with a great attitude, someone who's patient and so forth, can handle situations, is able to take criticism. You can't always vet that right away. Like, sometimes you can do your best, but you find out things as you get to know people on a deeper level after you've worked with them for a while. But you can try and eliminate. Um, you can try and do your best to find the to pick up on those things as you're interviewing them. So I would say that culture, values, those are the key things that you want to know moving when you're hiring someone. And the key thing is, you also want to understand what your what's it called, what your end goal is ultimately. Like, what are they coming for, and what do you
Mhm.
want to accomplish? Because sometimes people can maybe share your values, but there's certain areas where maybe they're not experienced enough, maybe they're not maybe they share those values, but they're also not great at taking feedback. There's all sorts of little areas where you've got to look. But I would say those are the key things.
Thanks, man. It's I was just actually counseling someone earlier today, and one of the things I was saying is that as you grow up, life is kind of is boring in that sense. You're just doing the reps, right? You're putting in the time. You have your pedigree of the things that you have to consistently do, and it's consistency that wins. When I did powerlifting, with helping people over the years, the job that I have now, moving into whether you were doing studies in the past, I'm sure that there is a pedigree that you always have to do with most of your clients, right? And there's so many layers to that I assume gets boring. Are there any things that have just kind of blown you away or given you some moments of fun, or just like you've met a client and you were just like, exhilarated by them, or they just came in with energy where you didn't uh, it came from nowhere kind of thing?
Uh, yeah, I think at this point, most of the clients, like anyone I work with now, is pretty good. They're friendly people. They're great to work with. Has anyone blown me away? I think there's people you meet in general that blow you away. They're just great people. They have a great energy. Um, they have all these great ideas. You don't necessarily work with them, but they might
Mhm.
be in the same area field. They might be a friend of a client or someone you met through someone else. Um, but I don't find it boring actually. I think for me, connecting with people is great. And a lot of times if you're helping someone bring on new people, it really is just connecting. And it can be a great process when you're just meeting different people. There's definitely people you meet who can be quite inspiring. Um, and there's some that aren't. That it's not that they aren't. You just, it just is what it is. But I wouldn't say I've actually ever found it boring. There's parts of anything that are boring. Anything you do in life, like life isn't always going to be exciting. Most of it isn't exciting. I think most of the exciting stuff you see people doing is the product of a lot of boring, quote unquote, boring nights and a lot of hard work. And then they get the fun stuff after. But people are usually out having fun every weekend. I mean, that's great. Uh, but it's not necessarily a reflection of what it takes to move ahead.
Definitely. I feel that, man. So then we kind of talked about the better stuff, the things that work really well. What kind of trials and failures and refinement did you end up facing? Was there a season where your faith was tested the most?
Um, so I think, like I said, that's in hindsight where I felt God the most. I think early on is when it was tested the most. I
Mhm.
think early on too, because it was a time in life where I was a little disconnected from faith because I grew up with it, but it was also a time where I felt it was challenging just because it was hard for me to reconcile, I guess, how some churches could be or some Christians could be with how I guess we're supposed to be. Um, so I was a little disconnected. So it could be challenging at those times uh, early on, especially if you're talking about confidence, things like that. And also, you're trying to establish yourself, right? You're not making you're in university, you're not making a ton of money. You're spending a lot of money on courses and things like that. So you're basically just starting out. And there's also that pressure of needing to get ahead, get your life established. And it can be tough, especially back then. You're doing a lot of things, but it's hard to often know what you're focusing on. So I think that that was probably the toughest period in that sense. So it was both in a weird way, you feel God the most in hindsight, but it was also the most challenging. And then I think just after I started Agent Brand, I was doing a lot more sales. And I
Mhm.
think that's an area where I struggled because I needed to get better at that. I wasn't as great at calling people up or doing follow up. And I was still getting better at that. So I think that was a bit of a challenging period at first, just learning and figuring things out. And I was doing a lot of it, a lot of stuff I just took on myself, which again, it's great because I learned the hard way and now you have a lot of different skills. But at the time, I found it very, very, very challenging. And I did question it at times, if this was what I should be doing.
Mhm. So what then are you doing now instead of like obviously you're way better than you were before. Every year you put in, whether it's making cold calls or whatever it might be. But what is the where does most of your traffic come from for potential new clients, or do you ever end up sometimes also trying to get new clients, or are they still coming in based off of whatever methods you're using?
Um, so now a lot of it is referrals. A lot of it is we have a fairly good Google ranking, so people just find us. And that's most of it. We get a lot of we get inquiries not just from the GTA, but around North America.
Mhm.
So I think one of the great things about doing it for a while is that you just build up a certain presence and network connections and so forth, and a lot of that stuff gets a bit easier because you're not just trying to find new business from scratch. You're starting from a place where, excuse me, you have a lot of experience and you just have a wider network, both online and offline. Like, I mean, I don't have a huge online network, but our Google ranking's pretty good, and that's been more than enough to get interest. And then, of course, we haven't done a trade show in a long time, but that's also a great place to get a lot of business, build new connections. So ultimately, most of it referrals now. Most of it, like, we don't have to actively go and search as much. A lot of it just comes in just based on the work we're doing.
So then, with that being, so Babu had a great question. As a Christian, with the art that you make, and of course, like you said, you haven't faced a lot of challenges in that sense. But what have you found has been challenging as a Christian on any level? Have you run into that, or I guess is real estate one of those things where you just don't find that to be as big of a problem? Because I can attest to some of the issues I've had in the film industry as being quite plentiful. What about in yours? That seems not cookie cutter in the sense, but there is an objective goal every time to get that house sold or to get that branding deal done for a potential client.
I think so. If you're talking about from that perspective, I think it would probably be the earliest clients I worked with, because when I started in university, a lot of the cards I ended up doing, or people who'd want stuff done, were like doing nightclub events. So, I mean, most of the events were pretty straightforward, just your usual, you know, club night thing. So that I was never, I guess, challenged in that regard. But I think there was also a challenge with some of the people, because some of the people you work with in that industry, especially at that age, they're definitely not the most reliable or best, I guess you could say, people. So there's definitely challenges in that regard. I think as a Christian, it hasn't been so much from the business side of it. It's been from the my own personal managing side of it, being able to, I guess, rise to the occasion, or handle things the right way with patience. Because there's times where you're really tested and you just want to, uh, I guess, handle things. There's times where you might want to just want to tell someone off, like you're really frustrated. Um, so I think those are the biggest challenges. I think they're more personal, and in terms of how you treat others, handling things the right way. That's, I think, where the real challenges came in for me.
Hmm. Yeah, as you move up in any industry, it's taking the noise, the hurt, the people who are constantly in a state of frustration, and then allowing that frustration to neutralize it. It's with like I'm getting back into martial arts, and one of the things that I'm starting to practice ahead of getting going back to paying for people to instruct me again is to read the situation and take that person's energy and kind of either convert it or slow them down to the point where they're actually tired, and to be able to deal with um, their lack of focus, because a lot of times they're dealing with a lot of negativity if they're coming at you hardcore. I've faced that a lot, especially with dealing with men with addiction, and some of them you just can't help because they're in a tough state. But I do relish, like, again, all the things that you and I have gone through and the people that we've been able to help. I can only imagine in a business setting, because we haven't done a lot of business together, where you do have to take on big personalities, egos, people who are frustrated, people who are acting just pig-headed, I guess you could say. And I listened to these body language experts. They do a lot of podcasts. I'll try to link it in the notes here. And I think one of those things that has been pivotal in learning about people's body language is when the brain starts to flip and starts to change. Like, they were saying that if a person's about to attack you, one of the things that they're going to do is their blood will rush from their face and head down into their extremities, or head down into the nervous system, to be able to get ready for that fight or flight. Or it goes from the outside thumbs into the inside thumbs because they're turtling. Do you remember any of those situations where you could vividly see a change in a customer or a situation? Like, do you have any of those moments or times where you had to really shift things because maybe they were bringing some negativity from somewhere else at you?
Um, so you mean you could tell that they were instantly like kind of off put by something I
Yeah,
said,
they're
or
just
they
coming
were
at
agreeing?
you with
Um, yeah, I can. I remember once, I won't go into too many details, but I remember a customer essentially showing me his car keys, I guess, to demonstrate where he stood in the grand scheme of things. I guess I was supposed to be impressed. I wasn't. I didn't understand what he was doing at first, but he was trying to, I guess, communicate that there are certain things he likes and likes in a certain way, and they weren't done to his satisfaction. And I guess I was supposed to get that. So there's little things like that, and I think people, it's interesting. A lot of people are pretty straightforward. They'll just tell you right off the bat, like, I'm not good with this. I'm not happy with this. Generally, I think it hasn't ever really gone that far. We've definitely had some like conflicts where people didn't agree with certain things because we do print production as well. And I think a lot of people, if things don't quite look exactly the way they want, like maybe the colors are slightly off, they would. This is long in the past. This doesn't really happen
them.
anymore. But I think when I was starting, I didn't do a great job of maybe communicating that, even though it was in
Mhm,
writing.
mhm,
And some people would get frustrated. But I don't know if there's ever been a moment where it was that visceral or that much of a problem.
mhm, mhm,
Especially since I think one thing I've always wanted to make sure is that we just own up to, if we, like, there's a mistake and it's clearly on our end and we can rectify it, we'll do it. Uh, and if it's not something that we can cover, we just don't, and we're clear about it. So clarity is important there, but I can't think of any that have been like what you mentioned, where I can see blood flowing to someone's feet and ready to ready
I've
to
been
go ahead.
around business clearly. Uh, yeah, whether it's been people I've like counseled or in the film industry, construction, as you've heard me say it before, but to those who are listening for the first time, I've worked now 16 companies, 36 different positions, or 37 different positions now. So I've been around the working block a lot, and it's just nice to hear from different perspectives, different fields, and maybe I just need to switch up my
Yeah.
field of work because that's nice. I'm glad that you have that maturity and that ability to right the ship, to move things in the right direction. So, how then do you build a God honoring culture in your business?
I think it starts with I think it starts with just those principles we talked about earlier. Servant leadership, patience. Because the truth is, I mean, there's people I've worked with a long time that aren't Christian. Um, so it's just setting the example, really. And I think with any culture, like, we're talking about God honoring, so there's certain values. It's just being clear about what's acceptable and what isn't. And living it. You have to be kind of practice what you preach, right? I think as Christians, that's the most important thing, right? It's important. I think a lot of times we talk about it or what's said and what's not said, but it's about actually living it. And I find if you're living it as genuinely as possible, that usually really sets a tone that people, I guess I don't want to say fall in lines with, because I don't, fall in line is maybe a little, um, I guess they do fall in line, but not in a stern way. It just sort of naturally happens.
I'm glad to hear that, and I've seen you do that over the years with different clients. Sorry, from afar, I guess you could say, from sharing over different clients and different situations that you've gone through. Is there an approach where integrity has been costly for you?
Uh, yeah, I think so. I think, have I turned down? I think it can be in general, just because there are some, I've never been in this realm again, because I think it's the area I'm in. just the niche I happen to pick, it's a little different. But like I can say, like I have family members, for example, like if you're in the finance world, there's often a lot of pressure to be like you've got it in the finance world thing. There's a lot of debauchery. Things can go off the rails. There can be a lot of drinking. So sometimes it's almost like if you want to connect or land deals, you've got to compromise on some level. Fortunately, I've
Mhm.
never been in that position where, and now, fortunately, I'm in even more of a position where if someone came and wanted to do something, I could just say no. I've definitely had people who wanted to sort of do things like, for example, and this just came to mind, like, they want you to what was it? What was the thing they do? Oh, they want you to make the invoice out for a larger amount than it actually costs. Like, so basically fraud. So you can do it. And I think when you're younger, there's a part of you that's like, well, I need to get clients, I need to whatever. You're not quite, you eventually figure out like that's not acceptable because it's not the right thing to do. But there's also part of you that's like, maybe I should, maybe I need to, maybe I need to do this because I need clients, and you ultimately realize those aren't people you want to work with anyway. But there's definitely been stuff like that where people have requested things, and fortunately, I've been able to just say no. But there are definitely times like that, and now it's far easier to just say no and move on. But it also doesn't happen as much. I think also as you move forward, again, discernment is a big factor in everything, and you become much better at picking who you work with, and also with what you provide, you set prices that sort of make it clear who you're going to work with, and it kind of weeds people out by default.
Mhm. Yeah, that's one thing with imposter syndrome that has finally started to shake off of me. And we've talked about this before, is setting prices that match what you're doing. So there's a story from Henry Ford where he was having a real issue with his assembly line, and I think he was falling behind some of the other operating companies at the time. With maybe at the time, like I'm sure they pump out a car a minute now, but at the time, I think it was like once every 15 or 20 minutes, a car was coming off the assembly line, and there was this genius engineer who came in or would come into businesses, especially assembly lines, and he would fix things in a matter of seconds. He was like this savant. So anyway, he came in and they recorded within like a few minutes or like within an hour, let's say, let's just say for the case of the story, within an hour, he fixed the problem in the assembly line. And again, from what I understand from this pastor, is an absolute true story. And so Ford is super excited because obviously production was going to go through the roof now, or at least even saving 2 minutes on each car would be hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe tens of thousands of dollars, which would attribute to hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars now. So when he got the bill, he was happy to see that the actual fix cost at the time $10, which would say I don't know 100 years ago with inflation is like I don't know $5,000 or something like that or $3,000.
Mm.
But there was a subheading underneath it, and the cost there was a $20,000 charge, and so Ford came to him and said, "What is this?" He's like, "Well, the fix only costs $10, but the $20,000 charge is the charge that I know how to fix it. I'm the one who knows what to do." So there is the actual, fix that happens versus the years and decades of putting that forward. And if you build the right institution, the right situation, the right pricing, billing, and all that stuff, you avoid a lot of nonsense too, which I am also learning from you as we connect and go more. So Babu had a great question here, which was, what is your biggest accomplishment in the art world? Like, what would be that one thing that you are most happy about so far? And I'll have a follow-up question after that.
I think no, that's a good question. So I guess what we do is art in a sense. I think if we're talking biggest accomplishment, I guess I think Agent Brand would be, I guess, one that really stands out for me, only because we had a goal with it and a concept, and it was really, I guess you could say, crafted to try and connect with a certain audience, and it really tied into our approach behind branding, and it had a really big impact. I think there's a lot of companies that kind of do what we do now, not in the same way, but we. I would say there was a certain change we brought to the industry. And I wouldn't say we're the only ones, but we were definitely one of those companies there. So I think in terms of being able to execute something that really connected, that's something I think is a big success. And also just we've been able to help. For me, the key thing is who helping people, and we've definitely been able to help people improve their business, and also a lot of those people in their businesses do charity work and they help a lot of people. So I think
Mhm.
for me that is really the thing that's been the biggest success artistically. I mean, I guess it's not artistic. I couldn't say artistic in that I have like a famous painting or anything like that, but I think it's more how the work has impacted other people directly and indirectly.
Mhm.
And for me, that's the most that would be, I would say, the biggest accomplishment.
Wonderful. The intangibles over the tangibles. That speaks a lot to your overall credibility and the way that I've known you to help so many people over the last almost. We're getting closer to a decade that I've known you, so I appreciate that and the earnesty in your statement. I think a lot of people will say that as Christianese, but I know that's not who you are as a person. So thank you for doing that and doing that firsthand for some of the people that I know and people that we've helped. So, for anyone listening out there who would like to move into entrepreneurship as a whole, what would be some advice that you would give them if they're feeling afraid right now?
Um, Afraid of
Starting up
doing
a
it. Yeah.
company, moving forward with art, so on and so forth.
Um, I think the first thing I would say is definitely pray about it. And it's I don't want to give like the stereotypical answers. I find it's important to get to the core of why you fear something. I think because it's often
Mm,
what holds us back from doing the hard things we need to do to grow. Right? That's what it comes down to. So there's so many different fears that could surround getting into something because sometimes it could be I want to start a business or get into art, but does that mean uh, dropping everything else you're doing? Does it mean being unemployed for a while?
mm,
Um, it, I would say, really ask yourself those questions. Pray about it. Ask yourself first, and then I guess try to understand what you're doing because there's art. Art is great because if you just want to get into art, it's something you can do in your spare time. You know what I mean? If you like painting, you
mm,
can start painting, you can get better at it. If you want to start a business, that's different. I guess it's really understand there will be hard work, but also ask yourself, why do you want to start your business? Um, for what reason? Who will it impact? How will it impact you? Is it something you can start working on while you have a job? Do you need a job? Have you saved up enough? Um, for me, that's always the core thing, the why. And if there's fear, it's just asking, there's praying about it, and also that I guess you could say self inquiry, where you ask God, why am I scared of doing this? What's the fear? Like, what are the things? Because usually there's something behind it, and it's very understandable. Like, I do know I have some friends who are entrepreneurs, and their approach is like they don't want a safety net at all. Like they just
mm,
do something. So they just dive in and do it. And I get that. I actually understand it. I understand why it makes sense for them. That's not
mm,
really me. Like I wouldn't just dive into doing something um, without a plan or a strategy or maybe understanding how it would impact people around me or so forth. And I'm not saying they don't think about that. It's just their way of doing things. So if you want to start a business, that's something you really have to think about. And it also depends where you are in life because if you're married with kids, um, there's a whole different set of questions, responsibilities. If you're single, I mean, it's the best time because you can kind of do what you want. And it's interesting. I've talked to like Uber
Mhm.
drivers and different people,
Yeah.
and the funny thing is when we're chatting, I'll talk about, oh yeah, I have some friends who do Uber and whatever, and they're like, oh man, I'm married now. I wish, now that I'm married, and Steve, I'm sure you can relate, but they're like, now that I'm married with kids, I'm finally understanding how much time I had when I was single. Like
Mhm.
they didn't realize it. And not you, because I know you've always kind of worked hard at things and always had a certain understanding. Uh, but when you're single, it's a great time, right? You just have not all the freedom in the world, but you know what I mean. You don't have a wife, you don't have kids. You might have family responsibilities, but it's different. You have a bit of runway to try things, to fail, to learn, to grow. Not that you don't have that when you're married with kids. It's just a different time. You've got to manage things differently. It, it's um it's a real blessing when you're at that point. So that's a factor I would think into. All of those things kind of factor in. And the key thing is the why, because I'm not someone who's entirely like you should only do things you're passionate about. But if you have a great idea and you're excited about the impact, um, and that's the key thing too. It has to be something you really want to do, because ultimately, even if it's something you love, there's going to be hard work, and there's going to be periods where it's not pleasant, where you're going through a tough time, and you've got to push through it. So that's the key thing I would say too. Is this something that you're willing, like, are you willing to have a tough time with it? Because I think a lot of people, they think of entrepreneurship and they think of all the good things. They think, oh, you'll just have free time and you can take trips whenever you want, and that's often not the case. Like it's a big responsibility, but for a
Mhm.
lot of successful entrepreneurs, it's something they enjoy. Like they like that responsibility. They like
Mhm.
building something. They like building something that helps other people. They like building something that can help other people be successful at what they want to do. So that's a big responsibility. And if you're growing a successful business, there's going to be more and more responsibility. And you can absolutely get people on board to take care of different things, and but there's absolutely periods of challenges and that are difficult. So that's a key thing too. You've got to ask
Mhm.
and pray about things like that. Or is this something you're going to be willing to do when it gets hard? And if the answer is a clear no, then maybe it's not something you should be getting. You should start.
Mhm. So then that's a great point. And the next time I have you on, we're gonna do it hopefully a deep dive into AI and talking business practices and kind of even the methods of how you go about maybe getting clients or doing work like and doing those tutorials in the creative realm because you're the creative go-to guy for me. You're making great coin as well. So and you're working with really high-end clients. So what would then be if you were going to start the business realm this year? What would, let's say, be your three? I know you talked a little bit about, obviously the things you might have to give up, your timing. What would be maybe those three tips about starting a business now? Because obviously 30 years ago when you were starting, or 28 years ago, you didn't have AI tools. You were
Mhm.
working with a barely functional sorry, no, what was it? 20, so not 30 years, 20 years ago was it, right? About almost 20 years ago, or how many years ago was it now?
For
Was it almost
me, um, probably, yeah, 25,
okay? So the
25,
25
30.
years
So
ago,
yeah.
the beginning of the internet, we had no DSL or nothing. We're working on 56K modem.
Yeah,
You know,
you know what? That's true. I remember friends in university fighting over who got to use the phone line to like download stuff with Napster.
oh man, or like I remember growing up tough. Life was tough, and they had $10 net zero, no, not net zero, AOL CDs. So 10-hour net
Mm,
AOL CDs. And so this was obviously something I should have done, but they had like a community center. There was a place where you could get like 10 hours of internet time or whatever, right? Like in a paid CD. And I think I probably stole like 40 or 50 of them, right? Because I was like, yeah, absolute sinner over here. So in stealing them, I was able to jumpstart my way and figure out net zero, figure out ad blockers, and just like obviously we're talking about a different realm with entrepreneurship, right? So with that being said, the principles of what it was like 25 years ago with the
mm.
tool today, to give you a second to think about that, how would you then converge those two into maybe 3 rules about how you would start up a company today, creative company in particular? Like, you do print, which is creative, but at the same time, doing events and all the other things that you've done. What would be those 3 tips right now for an entrepreneur, a younger entrepreneur, to actually use that?
Um, yeah, AI is so. If you're younger, one thing I would say is this: definitely develop real skills, because I think one thing I'm noticing now is that people have started to use AI for everything. The
Mhm,
problem is when you get AI to do every AI is a great tool, but AI is kind of like how actual people are. It can make mistakes. A lot of the content isn't it's good maybe, but it's not at that level that sets you apart. Um, so I would say develop some real skills, uh, like actual real skills that position you as a leader, as opposed to just using AI for everything. So think of AI as a tool rather than a sort of cure all for everything. But what I would say is use it to do research. You can rapidly prototype. Like if you have an idea for an app, if you have an idea for a platform or something you want to sell, you can prototype something really quickly. Like a lot of these tools are, when I think back, it's pretty amazing now that you can just throw up a shop on Shopify. You can have AI create a plan for you. But I think one is develop some really solid skills that set you apart uh, in what you want to do. Two is to use AI as a tool and definitely do the research, understand what you're getting into, um, and understand your fears. Understand, like, if there's something holding you back, really get to the core of what that is and why. And also, I think what I mentioned before is understand there's going to be hard work, ups and downs. Is that something you're ready for or want to do? And
mhm,
sometimes, like, you do need to jump into it. Um, you do need to do your research, strategize, but there's also time for just jumping in and doing it. Um, so it's about discerning and understanding when those things when it's time to do that after you've done enough research and so forth. But if you have a great idea, like, that is a great thing now that you can actually research really easily. Has this done before? Is it unique? Can I make it work in this market? Is it due to a market, or is it something that I can sell worldwide? Is it something I'm going to sell in North America? Is it something I want to sell? Is it a service? Is it I heard right now one of the biggest expanding businesses are laundromats or laundry services, because a lot of people send their laundry out. They just want to get it done. They don't want to do it themselves. So, like that, for example, it's it's an established business. They've been around forever. Laundry services aren't new, but what's your approach to it? As opposed to, it's not some new idea you came up with, but what is your approach to it might be new. The way you position it might be new. How can you do that? And you see that a lot. There's been a lot of businesses I've noticed popping up that are just like, oh, this someone came up, they're selling film cameras and they're actually selling pretty well. They brought back a film camera, they just repackaged it. I forget what it's called. It's a cool looking camera, but like that's not a new idea. That's a very old idea. And they just brought it back and repackaged it in a way that makes it appealing. And there's interest in it because I think right now a lot of people want something that feels a little more real than digital. And there's also still an audience out there that likes film cameras. So it's really just it's I mean, that's not 3 tips. I guess that's more or sort of half tips, but um I would say that those are probably the main things I would look at. But it's always hard. I always like to sit down with people one on one because it's always different with everyone. I find it like I know there's great tips out there on different podcasts, but I always find that they can be they sound great, but they're not always great for everybody, if that makes sense.
absolutely. So, when you were the ability to take that knowledge that you learned with 3 steps that you just gave us, um, do you find that as a business owner now, that you have to go back to those same principles, or these are just like the entry level principles, or do you find that there's actually going to be a um, the foundational principles match the day to day signing the 6-figure contracts or whatever you're doing, right?
Yeah, I think they do because I think they are foundational. I think they always apply just because you might get to a point where you want to expand into another area or start working with a different kind of client or um, start offering products or offer a service. And you've got to
Mhm.
ask those questions again, like why does it match our brand, what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, our ultimate vision? Does it move towards that or is it a distraction? And that happens. It's happened with a lot of businesses where they've kind of just went off track or maybe were stubbornly stuck to what they were doing, like a lot of department stores, right? All those department stores could have been Amazon. They could have been, they had everything in place to be,
Mhm.
remember Consumers Distributing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That was
100%.
like internet shopping before the internet, essentially. So they could have transitioned to that very easily, but none of them wanted to move off their core model that they had built their entire business around because they figured it would end it without realizing that it was coming to an end sooner than they thought, anyways, for the most part. Not
Mhm.
that you still can't have a successful department store, but um, what by the time they tried to jump into it, it was just too late. And it's amazing to think back that not that long ago, Sears was like the biggest company in Canada or one of the biggest stores in the country, and now it's gone. Same with Eaton's and all these different places, Hudson's Bay. So um, you have to be innovating. You have to kind of think, and you also have to think about how does this connect with your audience or the people you're trying to serve. And that's something you always have to keep in mind because there's always new ideas, there's always new things, and a lot of times in business, or if you're working with a company or coming with a marketing plan, it's not about doing everything new that ever like taking advantage of every new platform. It's picking the right platforms, like where's the best audience for you as opposed to just throwing things everywhere.
Absolutely, man. And thank you for giving more in-depth answers, I think, than the average guest, because we have the personal rapport there, and I don't want to obviously oust any of your business, your clients, your people, but I appreciate how much you are sharing, because I think not even in the stream right now, but as the recording comes back and people do look back, as you're going to be hopefully starting up your own side of counseling and mentorship and guidance. These are those pivotal moments where people can see how things started for you, and obviously from the conference, sorry, not obviously, but from the conversations we've had, it's not about large growth for you, it's about the individual people that you can help. So with that being said, what does success mean to you through a biblical lens?
I think it for me, it's really about setting the right example, helping people, and again, trying to build leaders. For me, leading people to Christ has always been about setting a good example rather than like there's a time to tell, but there's also a lot of it is just doing the right thing, setting the right example. And a lot of times over the years, that's what really connects, but of course, for the right reasons. But for me, it's always just been about helping people and connecting with the people you can help the most, that your work can help the most, um, and serving as well as possible.
With that being said, then I guess I'm going to throw one off the cuff at you. As for being an example, where was those times where you had a chance to really either bring someone to a better knowledge of Christ, really witness, or maybe even take them to church or whatever it might be through these, because you're dealing with people's lives, right? Whether it's the mortgage side of things and helping the different people to get on track, the sales side of things, as well as the actual individual companies and the creative products. Whether it's, I think you were dealing with one time with someone who's doing perfume, other people who are doing like maybe drinks or
Yeah.
different entertainment businesses. Have you had those interactions where you could what God could work through you, where you really saw the Holy Spirit moving?
You know, I in terms of seeing it in them, I would say no. I think people have. I think people have maybe. I haven't. No, I can't say I've noticed because there's definitely clients where you worked together for. It's just one project and then you move on. Um, with other clients, you know what? There might be some that I'm just not aware of, just because we're not in touch. But honestly, no, I can't say there's been any that have really, had questions or dived in. Maybe a little, but honestly, I can't say I have, no.
Sorry, I'm as a living testimony. I've seen it in a lot of ways, and I think going back to baseball, which you and I both love. I think there's the people who are dedicated starting pitchers. There's the middle relievers, and then there's the quote unquote closers. And I think not that we want to go down a road of just you'll get to know the Lord and that's it. It's a long term of discipleship. So I think that one of the things that you're the best at is being the opening pitcher, being that Clayton Kershaw, and also being that person to help them in the later, the Mariano Riveros. And there's a lot of uh, there's a lot of, again, going back to, I guess you could say, the boring. Like, it's a blessing to be a Christian. It's a blessing to have the opportunities to really love the Lord and do it in the work setting. And but everyone has their gifting, and I think one of your best gifting is allowing people to even enter into those types of conversations outside within the work world and with outside of the work world. So I appreciate you doing that with the countless guys that we've worked together to help in some really really tough situations. So yeah, you're Clayton Kershaw, that's for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
No, no worries. So if there was someone watching, and this is like you're only going to give them one message about your life in general, and again, next time I'd love to talk more AI and talk about actual business packages and moving forward in that realm. But if there was one specific message you'd like to deliver to anyone who really wants to get deep into this, into the world of entrepreneurship or creative world, what would that message be?
Um, I would say uh, definitely deepen your relationship with God because that will provide a lot of clarity in terms of your purpose. Because I think that's a big factor too. Is what is God's purpose for you? And I think if your does your idea align with that purpose, or is it something you just want to do? Um, is it something you just think can make some money quickly and step out? So I think understanding that is probably the key thing, your relationship with God, but also really questioning the why behind what you're doing, especially at the start. That's really important.
Yeah, get that proper foundation. Sorry, I had a latency there for a second. To get that proper foundation is absolutely huge. And when you step into a realm where you could be making that money, you could be doing things that are um, that are life altering at any given time, like that signing that deal or whatever it might be. I think we have to be on our toes. And I appreciate you spending the time and giving us that insight into the creative realm and into the past 25 years of everything that you've experienced and that you've been going through. So yeah, there was a question that was asked, and it was from our previous guest. If you could have been born in any century, which century would that have been?
Any century. Hmm, I like toilets, so that narrows that narrows things down. If it was visiting, I mean, oh, there's so many centuries. If it was born, that means I have to live there. But I think you get used to it. I think if you never had a toilet, you just don't really think about it. It's just the
I
way
think the
things are going.
Persians had full plumbing, right? In the I think it was fifth or sixth century BC, right? So I think you'd be all right. You'd have some times of play. Obviously, the Romans didn't figure that one out. They had poop running down the streets and all that jazz. Everyone romanticizes the Roman culture like crazy, right? Like the Roman centurions, all these memes and everything. and yet the norm is to be would it be in a political or sorry even in our the guy in the army would be a fancy boy. You'd have poop in the streets. People were being slaughtered left, right, and center. People love to romanticize interesting parts of history. But when I
Yeah.
found out that the Persian communities had figured out toiletries and also wind and proper irrigation, that was crazy. To be able to grow things in different climates and to create wind tunnels in communities, like between windows. I think many, uh, what's it called, civilizations over the years have had these explosive times where they learned something or learned many things and they just got overrun over the years. So that's, yeah, yeah. Anyway, so at least you got some, you got some choices for toiletries.
Well,
That's,
I
mhm,
think the was it the Aztecs?
mhm.
I think one of these like North American civilizations, I think they had figured out plumbing to a pretty high degree.
Yeah.
Um, like they had clean water. I'm not sure if it's the Aztecs. I can't remember who it is, so I wouldn't quote me on it. But that would be interesting. Um, Biblical times would be interesting. Yeah, honestly, it's hard to pick a century because there's something interesting, and you're right. Everything's romanticized with the past, especially now. Like I think we tend to think we often think the past was better in every way when even the recent past when it probably wasn't as great as we think. And there's a lot of nostalgia that comes with that too. I will say, like a lot of people will say, "Oh, the '90s were the best." In the '90s, I can think back. The '90s weren't they weren't always the best. Like there was definitely some drawbacks, and there's it's like that with any period you're living in. And it's definitely interesting now because things are accelerating so quickly with AI and all of these things that we've never really had to grapple with. But um, yeah, I would definitely the biblical times would be very interesting as far as going back in the past and living or being born in the past. That would be
Mhm.
interesting. And even yeah, the and it depends where too, because it could be anywhere in the world. So yeah, but yeah, that biblical times definitely would be one. Ancient Egypt would be
Absolutely.
interesting too. I would be very curious to see the pyramids
Yeah.
being built, all of that.
There is a yeah, I usually get the biblical answer. I want to be, living around the time of Jesus, which is super cool. I should have actually caveated with that, but I'm glad you you stayed away from the prototypical Christianese answer. Do you have a question, a future question for the next guest?
A future question. Any topic,
Anything. That's
anything.
really the point of it is to move it forward that way. Hope
Um,
them off guard if they don't watch it.
all right. Do I know who's going to be on next? Should I give him a hard question?
New wise, probably not, but you never know. Might be,
Hmm.
might be Tanel. Yeah, I think new wise. Yeah, it might be Tanel.
Okay. How about if there was one thing, like one what's the one thing you could keep? Like, just say we something happened. We had to get rid of almost. It's like you can keep one. Like you could say technology, and you have to get rid of the rest. So we'd have to get all the things we take for granted, like lights, running water, electricity, all of this different stuff. If there's one thing you could keep, what would it be?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm sure he'll ponder that deeply. All right, so let me just go through any questions. Know that you're usually an early riser. You got a lot of work ahead of you, so I appreciate you staying on this late. And that's the thrills of being a dad and just all the other stuff I'm going through. So I appreciate you coming on where most people do this during the day or in the late afternoon. But
No, thank you for having
um,
me. I
no,
really appreciate it.
appreciate it, man. I'm getting my Frasier moment in here. So let me just flip through here quickly. So let me see. I think Babu had something up here. Oh, sorry. Lotus had entrepreneurs think differently than the average people when thinking of a problem and solving which helps them generate money. Great point. Lotus, I don't know if you're still on, but I'm glad to hear from you again. Um, my purpose is being a good husband. That is fantastic. That is pretty much after being, whether you're living a life of singleness and you're putting it into God and your relationship with God and the people around you, or you're married, that is the number one thing you can do outside of your relationship with God. So I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you for sharing that. Um, then we have, just going through here quickly. Um, Questions, blah, blah. Yeah, definitely got to pray for people in situations where they don't know how to keep themselves from hurting themselves in the long term. Blah, blah, blah. Wow, I'm really shocked living at your your constant your badgering tonight. You're not usually like this, so hopefully everything's okay in your life and whatever you are facing living. We'll be praying for you as a whole. I'm really sorry that you're in this state right now. Um, and yeah, Babu, ask him how he met top sign. So all right, for starters, asked. Okay, so Mark says that he met her at I asked me on an Olive Garden. Okay, so Mark, quick question there. Then we're kind of going on a side tangent. Then Mark, how did you meet her? You know, in general, did you meet her at the Olive Garden, or was it a situation where that was the date? I'm a little unclear. Well, you met her at church. Okay, wonderful, and hopefully that flourished well. Obviously, so is she around the same age as yourself, or is she at a different age bracket? Wonderful. Okay, Mark, I appreciate you sharing. Was there any other questions that anyone had for Sean? 8 years apart. Okay, wonderful. She's younger. Hey, marrying younger always works out, man. Helped out for me. Obviously, my dad married. Sorry, not obviously. My dad married my mom, who was 6 years older than him. There's a lot to be said about marrying an older woman too, with just smarts, IQ, just overall as well. I think disconnected. All right, so we're getting in. So if anyone has any questions, that's fantastic. We'll try to relate them to Sean, and if you could drop it in the message box here, I'll probably just cap off. I'm just going to pray, and then if there are any other questions, we'll do that. If not, we'll let Sean run, and yeah, we'll just also save any of those questions for next time when we hopefully would jump into AI operating a business. We'll continue to work on that and figure that out. So from Lotus, what has been the most challenging part of entrepreneurship, Sean?
Um, I think for me, it was just it was the focus initially, taking the next steps and just learning how to kind of build your network, because that wasn't the easiest thing for me at the start. That was challenging to get better with connecting with people, meeting people, building your network. Also, understanding value and how to properly value the work you're providing. Um, that was the challenging part. Getting started wasn't actually challenging, but getting through it and working through the tough lessons, for me, that was the hardest part. And as of right now, the hardest part, I think, there's some things we're pivoting on.
Mhm.
Uh, so that has been a bit of a challenge, just kind of working out that sort of next step. But I would say overall, the main challenge for me was just getting out there and connecting. And for some people, they're just naturals at it. They can walk into a room and just take it over. And that was not me when I started. That was very much a challenge. And if especially back then, there was no social media at the start and any of that, so you really had to push yourself. That was definitely the toughest part for me.
Business cards. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Business cards are still good, like it's I think we're in a world where everything's so digital that when someone gives you a like, especially if it's a well thought out business card, like it has a texture, it still makes an impression with anyone
Mhm.
actually. So it's if it's done the right way, it's still a really good thing. Like most people don't keep it, but I think there's still something to be said for having something you can have in your hands, you know? Something that's tangible, as opposed to just a digital some digits in your phone, you know, some digital stuff. It doesn't quite have the same impact.
Yeah, there's the embossing in particular. Like when my buddies were making um, business cards for me at the time, like I was blessed to be with a bunch of graphic designers at the time. I wish I had known you then, Sean. But one of my buddies made this phenomenal card. Like it was a different die. There was a die cut involved. It was curved edges. I'd never seen anything like it. And I used to hand that card out, like when I was just getting into film, with so much glee. Even there's like
Mm.
a pride to it, right? Like there's a again, if you are not spiritually in a good place, do not watch American Psycho. I'm telling you that straight up right now.
Oh,
However,
I know what you're
one of the
talking about.
greatest scenes I've ever seen, uh, with just creativity and frustration and anger in the human mind, especially when you're doped up. You could even probably just YouTube that is the business card scene in American Psycho, and it really does get you going. Like when you're comparing cards with other people, especially in the 2000s, and I'm sure it is now to a degree, but it was just a thing of yeah, in a bad way. It was pretty bad with my pride. So Phil, I don't know if you Sean, did you ever watch American Psycho, or do you
Eh,
remember that
question.
scene?
I know what you're talking about. The
Yeah.
he
Again,
can't
if you
stand it.
are
The guy.
struggling with faith, there is a like a crazy movie, awful. I would not watch it now. It's not going to benefit me in the
Yeah.
slightest. You could watch the clips. There's enough American Psycho clips that would be amazing to watch when it comes to that. All right, so question from Mikey. We have I know in business there can be a competitive side. How do you say stay ethical in the midst of temptation? Was there ever a temptation to greed, for example?
Greed. I think there were. I don't know if you call them temptations. I think there were times where maybe, like I mentioned before, when it was starting, you felt like you had to maybe do something unethical to try and because people try like there are in business like people do unethical stuff all the time. It's actually quite normal in a lot of cases. So when someone says, "Hey, could you make out the invoice for X amount instead?" Especially when you're starting out and you're not the most confident, it's not so much for greed, but there's an element of like doing the wrong thing, hoping to get business. Not because you're so much greed, not because you're greedy, but maybe the opposite, because you feel like I need to get something or I need to build a client base. Um, I would say, you know, you mentioned competition. I think I was competitive in a very unhealthy way, in a very like for a while, there was this focus on what other people are doing and having to beat them. And there's an element of competition to business, but I also realized with what we do, there's a way we do it. And again, it's about God's purpose for your life. You're not really competing with anyone. There's enough business in most cases out there for everybody.
Mhm.
And it really shifted things for me because then you could be happy for other people and their success as opposed to worrying about who might take what from you. Um, so in that way, that aspect of competition, I think, was definitely challenging for me because I didn't have a very healthy or I guess you could even say loving view towards it. And
Mhm.
now, I mean, if I see a competitor do well, I have no issue with that. I'm glad for them. You know, it's good to see people doing well in general. But if you just keep focusing on what God's plan is for you and you keep working, it usually um, you will get there. Let's put it that way. So that aspect. In terms of greed, though, no, I think at one point maybe when you're younger, of course, I think there's that idea of wanting a lot of money. But I think as time went on, very quickly you learn money's a great tool, but you don't want it to rule your life. It's just a tool to help you do things, to help other people, to accomplish things in life, but it's not an end unto itself.
Not a be all and end all for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now we're going into Babu time, which I love. Babu comes up with some amazing questions. What's your dream car? Spit it out. Don't think about it.
Oh man, that's a great question. Dream car. Dream
Don't think
meaning
about
it's
it.
not necessarily
That's what.
attainable, right?
Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's your dream, man. Like, don't think. Just go.
Um, Dream car. I think it was this Aston Martin. I don't know if I call it my dream car, but it was this. So it's kind
The
of not a
blonde
dream car.
one?
It's like an SUV, but it was this
Okay.
crazy. It's not even a dream car. I was just fascinated by it because the price was so ridiculous, and it looks really cool. I was just like, I have to get in this car because I'm like, is this really? Is it? Is it really 200 grand? Is it really going to give you $200,000 worth more of an experience than, you know, Corolla SUV? I don't know, but that's something that came to mind. You know what? I don't really have. You know what my dream is? My dream car is Kit from Knight Rider. That's my dream car. Growing
Nice.
up, I
That
thought
was
he
that a
was
Trans
real.
Am or was that a Firebird? I think it was a Trans
It
Am,
was a
right?
Trans Am. Yeah, it was a Trans
Yeah.
Am.
Firebird is my favorite car of all time. So,
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah. Pontiac had some really like Pontiac had they're not only great cars, but they were like attainable cars. You know
yep.
what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think the 67 was super classic, but then in the 70s or like the 80s, or on Knight Rider, that car, there's something about it. It looked like to me, it looked like a switchblade. I never seen a car
Yeah.
like it since. It has such a maybe the square lights I'd try to do something with or whatever, but man, like the front end square lights, the heck, oh, those things were amazing.
Yeah.
The General Lee from Mark, that's legit. Sorry, you gonna say
Oh
something,
yeah.
Sean?
Sorry? Oh, I was gonna
You
say,
gonna
yeah, the fog lights, it was so simple. It was just solid black. And as a kid, it talked. I thought it was real to some degree. Um, yeah, I love that car. And I would love there's still some replicas out there that you can rent. So that would be cool. I've heard it actually wasn't the greatest car to drive. But uh still for I think a lot of people for like a certain generation definitely.
100%. I'm going to get to Lotus's question in a second. Just a quick fire shot question again from Mr. Babu. The greatest questioner alive. Uh, Sean, do you watch Indian movies? And who's your favorite actor?
I'm honored. The greatest questioner alive. You know what? Not I saw one, oh, it was a while ago. I don't watch them regularly, but very occasionally they do. And I can really enjoy them because they're always just so epic. Like they're really long. Um, there's almost a part of them that feels like classic Hollywood movies that were just very they could be really long, but they just had so much story to them. I find
Mhm.
movies now are just sometimes even TV shows, they're not paced very well. They just kind of go through a bunch of things and rush the ending. Whereas you have
Mhm.
these like epic films, and a lot of Indian movies still feel that way. They feel very epic. Like there's such a rich story to them, Even I know people say they're repetitive, but I know that's changed a lot. I did watch it's not an Indian it's not an Indian movie. It was a Netflix show. I think it was it Delhi Crime or something? That was good. I watched the first season. That was really good. But as far as Indian movies, not regularly, no.
Very cool. Very cool. And so Lotus is asking, I don't know if she's probably asking both of us, have you ever heard of the letter Rockefeller wrote to his son about business? That's ever come across your pathway, Sean, or no?
I think I'm familiar, but I familiar in that I've heard of it, but I can't remember the letter. Does she remember?
Yeah,
Or
Lotus,
did
if there's
he?
any insights you'd like to share, I quickly searched it as soon as you messaged the chat here. I saw something on it. I'd have to look into it deeply. Is there any like 2 or 3 points that you wanted to share? Please type it out. I'd love to to hear and understand it because yeah, the Rockefellers are one of the few families who've kept their wealth. I think the average family that can keep their wealth is 3 to 7 generations. 10 is like an anomaly. It's like a one in a million chance. So
I've actually
um,
heard that for a lot of families, a lot it's actually 1 to 2 for most before that wealth is just completely
yeah,
gone.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's very
Yeah.
hard to keep those principles. I mean, sorry, I meant of the wealthiest of the wealthy that we can like actually
Oh,
track.
I see, I see. Yeah.
But, yeah, like, keeping wealth is super hard. It's, having that tension between not giving your kids too much and getting them making them feel entitled, versus teaching them what they need to actually go after because the family business usually gets driven into the ground unless there's someone passionate about it that doesn't get pushed into it.
Mhm.
Logan writes, he speaks of business savvy pointers on that. Okay. You know what? We'll take a look, and the next time Sean and I talk, Lotus, which will probably be in maybe 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks or so, or before then, who knows, God willing. I will definitely be versed in it, and we will chat about it. And if you can't come on, please watch the stream after. But always down, even for these types of video podcasts, we're still in the formation, and people notice like yourself or Mark and Mikey and Babu, and again, even living, again, sad some of your comments tonight, but living, you've been on the stream many, many times. I love you still. I hope things are changing in your situation. But yeah, you guys are part of the OGs, the beginning of it all, and just I appreciate you all for spending the time to talk. Some of you know, if it's new, I think Mark, you're new. I stream Mondays and Fridays most times, 10:30 Eastern Standard, and just lots and lots of good stuff ahead. By God willing, we're working on
One
addiction right
thing,
now. Yeah,
sorry,
go
Steve,
ahead.
one thing I throw in, Lotus, you know, I I actually don't know if I'm the most business savvy.
Yeah, you
Just been
are.
around a
Stop it.
long time.
Stop it. No, 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 no.
So
This is
what I mean is it's 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 just a process of learning. Anyone can be business savvy. I know people like so when we say business savvy, I know some people who are just naturals. Like they've just always been, how there's some people who are just like they're just great at something and they can just do it. That wasn't me. So like I have it now just because I've learned it. But what I meant to say is that it's something that anyone can attain. And for me, it's just it's a process of constant learning. It's not really it was never the most natural thing to me, even though I kind of dived into it.
so. Sean, in this question, I can reroute there from Babu. So, in the raising of your niece, in the raising of your niece, what were some of the times that, in dealing with hardships, or I guess when the devil shows up, what were some of those tools and things that you used to be that great guardian, that great figure in their life?
Uh, yeah, I think with kids, for me, I think growing up, you learn to be somewhat strict. But for me, I realized patience is a really important thing. And kids change so quickly. Like they can be like a different person the next week, or like month to month, they're can be completely different people. So I think the big thing for me was just patience and knowing when to kind of step back and listen, when to step in. But that was the main thing, because sometimes I also found with kids, like with anything in life, sometimes you need to let kids and like again anybody, you need to let them learn some lessons on their own.
Hmm.
Like you kind of just have to fall flat on your face so you realize not to do it again. Um, I think that would be the biggest one for me.
Wonderful. Yeah, I can. I'll echo that. And obviously, they're not grown yet, but I've coached and mentored, and then did a lot of help between the ages of, or sorry, supervising, helping, coaching, training, and doing a lot of supervision of youth and kids between the ages of 3 and 21, including some jailbirds and people in that realm. And I think it's, yeah, it's one of those things where it's letting them listen, or sorry, letting them know that there's a place that they can listen, and just being available, I think, is absolutely huge. So I appreciate that. Um, Wonderful. I'm glad you all had some good stuff for tonight. Yeah, if there's any other questions, please come ready, locked, and loaded. I'll be streaming again on Friday. Sean, just want to say thank you so much for spending the time with me and just being as great a best friend as possible. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Thanks for having me. Thanks for everyone who asked questions and tuned in. Everyone, I'll say every single person.
Build that algorithm. That's all we can do. You never know, yeah, even what age and mentality people are at, or even substance abuses and stuff that people go on with. So I'll just cap in prayer, do the usual finish, and yeah, we'll just cap off for the night, and you can get some sleep and get ready for your busy day tomorrow.
All right.
Lord Jesus, just want to thank you so much for this time. You work in with all circumstances and situations. I pray for those who are really hurt right now, who are just displaying uh, deep frustrations with themselves. I pray that they would turn to you in your love. Lord Jesus, I just want to thank you for the comments, questions, the algorithm, bringing people from all around the globe, or I guess at least in this case, in all around North America tonight to the stream. I just pray that it will continue to bless people and help people. Thank you for Sean's time. Pray that we will all grow and mature. And for any of those people who would like to move into entrepreneurship, pray that in the comments section that we'd be able to reach out to them, connect with them, and pray for them for entrepreneurship or just help in general prayer. Holy Spirit, if there's anything that we've talked about, that we've said that is not from you, that is wrong, I pray that you would remove it from people's minds and definitely bring it to our hearts so that we can change. I thank you so much for being our Father and our King. Thank you, Jesus, for dying on the cross and loving us, and Holy Spirit indwelling us in spending time in these with these terrible thoughts and waging war against our flesh. Thank you so much, Trinity, for all you're doing in our lives, and I pray this will bless people in the future. I just want to thank you for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. So if you'd like
Amen.
this video, you'd like to see more podcasts in the future, take a look at this video up here right now. I just would like to say thank you so much for watching, spending the time with us tonight. And, I just hope we can do this a lot more and more consistently, God willing. Have yourself a wonderful day, evening, morning, or night. God bless you.